if there are a lot of them concentrated in a single area. One thing I've heard is that there can be parties, owners can be unresponsive or be completely away from the area, not even local, and so it's hard to get a hold of them, which is a disturbance to the neighbors, and that's obviously problematic. On the flip side, I've heard lots of people say when I go to other cities, I love staying in an Airbnb or a Vrbo in a neighborhood because I get to experience that city as if I were a local. Alternatively, one big challenge that we've seen is short-term rentals being sort of locked up into short-term housing market, which in turn reduces the supply, effectively reduces the supply of long-term housing. And as everyone knows, one of the biggest topics of conversation right now among my colleagues and among the public is affordable housing. And so the concern there is the preponderance of the glut, so to speak, of short-term rentals causing rents to go up. And then just other concerns about people who don't have a long-term investment in the neighborhood versus people having visitors is nice. So I've heard both sides, but I would say that the overwhelming majority of comments are concerns about just how many there actually are. And so that is just what I've gathered from lots of conversations and emails. Today, I wanted to give this forum, and I think everyone's going to have to speak up just a little loud, just as loudly as they can. And I apologize for not having a megaphone or a microphone or something for us. But I just want to give everyone a quick opportunity to share their experience. And I also want to make sure that I'm clear on this, that whether I want you to share your experience or feel comfortable sharing your experience, whether you are, again, a neighbor or a resident who feels negatively affected by Airbnbs or by short-term rentals, or if you are an operator owner or just absolutely love the idea of short-term rentals, I want you to feel like you have a safe place to communicate that as well. So I think what we'll do, I'll just go over a couple of housekeeping things before I quickly ask staff to quickly introduce themselves, and a couple other guests who I'd like to make sure are present as well. But I want to give everyone 2 minutes to speak. So it's sort of like what we do in our committees. So 2 minutes to provide public testimony. In this case, it's just sharing your comments and your ideas. I really want to focus on problem identification at this point. So if you again, on either side, the problem identification with the process, how it is right now, your experience. You could even share your thoughts or ideas or concerns as an operator and the process and how that works, good or bad. So 2 minutes, anyone who feels wants to speak, please take that 2 minutes. If you're either uncomfortable with speaking, and that's okay too, we have a QR code. We have a QR code and we have some handouts to pass around. You can use that, and it goes to just a comment form, and you can put in your comments there, and it will go in. Either you can do it anonymously, I believe, or you can also leave your contact information just in case you were not on the email list. And just real quick, and this is not to put anyone out, but how many people here are 4th District residents?
Are what's?
4th District City Council residents.
I assume I am.
Okay, a lot of people.
Oh. And
the only reason I ask that is I just kind of want to get a sense for the room, but also want to make sure that, well, actually, let me back up. How many people received an email from my office about this? Okay, good. If you did not or are not on the email list, I would please use this QR code, drop your email in there, and we will make sure that you get on. We send out a monthly newsletter from the 4th District, so you're aware, and you can get on that email list and make sure that you get updates on just what's going on, but also events like this as they come up. So I just want to make sure that that is out there, because I did hear from a few people that we don't have all the neighborhood associations in our email email list. So I want to make sure that we're taking care of that. And anyone else, as an individual, whether you're a 4th District resident or not, has an opportunity to get in on that and make sure that you get emails from our office. So real quickly, if city staff is present here, if you could just quickly introduce yourselves. And I've asked city staff to be here to synthesize, take notes. We're taking notes as well. I'm taking notes in my head, and we'll synthesize all that. And afterwards, I'm going to synthesize some questions from all the comments. But if staff could just quickly introduce yourselves.
My name is James.Duddy. I'm the Development Compliance Supervisor for City Planning and Development. We oversee the enforcement of the regulations that are regarding the construction. Can you listen our front street to everybody?
Thank you.
My name is James Duddy. I'm the Development Compliance Supervisor for City Planning and Development. I oversee the enforcement of the zoning ordinances that go throughout the city.
Good evening, I'm Diane Binkley. I'm the Deputy Director for City Planning and Development.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Williams, Director of City Planning and Development.
And somewhere around here, she just wandered off, is Marissa Iden. She's my legislative aide. And I see Diana from Councilman Kevin O'Neill's. Would you say, okay, thanks. Diana. So, and Kevin O'Neill represents the citywide, but first district. And I was hoping he'd be here, but I guess he's got other things to do. He's all out and about all across the city. Katheryn was not able to make it tonight, unfortunately. Oh, and we have a microphone. All right. Thank you. Okay, so as we're getting that set up, it is 11 after 6. In order for us to get you out of here at a reasonable time, we're gonna have a hard cutoff at 6:45 with our comment section, and to give us an opportunity to ask questions if there are some on process related questions on how the system is working right now, that while we have staff available here. And then other ideas. One other thing that I wanted to mention while we're getting set up is...
So there are multiple cars involved, including a couple of semis.
Got the radio, get the traffic report. So the other thing that I forgot to mention is that another sort of concurrent process, I'm considering this as part of, as a policymaker, hearing from the public on these challenges. But concurrent with this, we're also having a report from the city auditor's office. So the city auditor is actually considered an outside auditor, even though his office is in the city. But what this audit will do is look at the process, and he does audits all the time, several big audits a year. Think of them as like a master's degree thesis on a particular policy or process or program of the city. In this case, Doug Jones, the city auditor, and his staff are taking a look at how does our short-term rental process work, what is the ordinance that governs it, and how does it done in other cities. And with that audit report will come some recommendations. And so I don't want, while I think that is really important and something that will be very helpful in my policymaking, what I really want to also do is hear from you all on what those challenges are and what some of those ideas are. So we have a microphone ready. So what I would suggest doing is, if you want to speak, maybe form a line right here on the half court, and then we'll come up one at a time, and staff is here again to hear your concerns or your thoughts. We will keep a timer going for 2 minutes, and if you hear the buzzer go, it means it's time to, the hook's coming soon. But thank you again for being here. I'm going to sit down and just listen, and as you want to speak, go ahead and get lined up, and don't be afraid to share your thoughts or put your mind on anything. All right. And if you would introduce yourself, if you're comfortable sharing your name and any other information about you.
My name is Mark Rodriguez. I'm with the Local Neighborhood Association.
Hello.
My name is Mark Rodriguez. I'm with the Local Neighborhood Association, and I do have some questions about short-term rentals. First of all, I'd like to know the planning
city planning department is where we log complaints?
Closer.
If that's the case, which is what I was told, planning or zoning, and also the auditor's department. But when I went to log some complaints, I was told that to go to 311, they don't handle it. Go to 311, file my concerns. About 2 months later, I get notice in the email saying they've been resolved. I go to 311. They say they're resolved, but it doesn't give me an explanation or how they were resolved. Regulation enforcement. I'd like to know who's in charge of enforcing the regulations and the penalties that go along with them. It doesn't seem like there's any feedback to those to the people that that file the concerns or complaints. There's no feedback on what was done. It's just like a big runaround. There's like nothing. I think we need to look into a cap on the amount of short-term rentals in a certain area. According to an investigative report by KCUR, the 6411 zip code is the 5th highest concentration of short-term rentals in the state of Missouri. That's a lot. With no regulation, you're gonna have a lot of problems. Now, we're not against short-term people being able to do what they want to do with their houses. But if there's no enforcement, there's nobody to complain to. And that's it. Thank you.
And as questions come up, I'm just kind of synthesizing them again, and because I think we'll get a lot of the same ones, and we'll have time to hopefully get a few of those answered process related. So come on up, next up.
My name is Andrea.bough. I live in the West Plaza area in the 4th District. I've lived here for 38 years. I am deeply concerned about what short-term rentals are doing to our community. I am concerned because this city has some 50,000 lacking affordable houses for people of lower income. At the same time, we have about 1,700 short-term rentals. And I sent you an email or a copy of this flyer to Marissa yesterday. You can get a copy of it. But essentially, what happens is these short-term rentals come into our community. They make it into essentially an informal hotel district where security is reduced. I had my car broken into for the first time in 38 years since I have had an Airbnb across the street and a post Airbnb right next to that. I would say that the process stinks. I protested one of the applications for an Airbnb when a neighbor and I found out that one of the neighbors that supposedly signed the application form denied it. And so we took it all the way through, but it cost me $518 to file that particular protest, which is, it's terrible. I mean, if a person lies on the form, they should be responsible for the fees and not the neighborhood person who is protesting. Mainly, I'm asking that the city outlaw all non-owner occupied short-term rentals because if the owner actually lives there, they experience some of the problems that all the rest of the neighbors are experiencing in terms of noise, parking, etc. and one other thing, that recently our Revolution and the Green Party endorsed that.
Thank you very much. And what I may do is, instead of lining up at half court, maybe we line up on the sidelines here. There should be some basketball analogies that I'm making with that, but I'm not smart enough.
And if everyone would hold the microphone right
yeah,
into their mouth, that would be great.
Another good point. So just make sure that you're holding the microphone as if you're moving around so that you can keep it going. So good suggestion. Here you go.
Hello. I'm sorry, I gotta apologize. I'm really nervous. I'm not a public speaker, so I'm shaking in my boots right now. I'm sorry. But my name is Tyler. I own Airbnb short-term rental management. I manage about 100 Airbnbs here in Kansas City. I just wanted to kind of tell you guys about what we're doing because I'm glad that I'm here to listen to some of your concerns. We meet all of our neighbors when we go into an area. We give them a 24-hour emergency contact number to reach out to us if there's ever any issue. One of the things that I always hear about is we think people are gonna come through parties and all that. We don't want that either. We screen people thoroughly before they ever get a chance to come to our rentals. We make sure that they're over 21. We do not host locals unless they're experiencing something like a plumbing emergency or a fire emergency, things like that. I can feel my voice shaking, I'm sorry again. But we do a lot to make sure that nothing ever happens. I've been managing Airbnbs here in Kansas City for 5 years, and I promise you've never had a problem with any of my units. Because the people that are doing it the wrong way are the out-of-state investors that don't give two craps about our city. They don't care about anything that's going on here. So what I think should happen is we should make sure that if it is an out-of-state investor, they have a local representative. One of the problems that we have is we have to get our units permitted. We have difficulties doing that because a lot of people are on the edge about short-term rentals. They don't understand what goes into it. We have to get 75% of the neighbors, I believe it is, to sign off on the short-term rental. 55. Wow, I just got dizzy. Sorry. So anyways, what I would like for us to do is be able to make it to where it's easier to get permitted and assign a number to that. That way we can be held accountable when we are doing something we're not supposed to be doing. I think that that's what makes sense for everybody. Have a 24-hour contact, a local contact, a number that's assigned to the Airbnb so when there is an issue, we can be held accountable and we can either be shut down or fined or whatever we need to do. But I'm happy to talk to any of you about anything you want to know about short-term rental or what we do. Let's just do it away from the microphone so my legs aren't shaking. Thank you guys.
All right, that's
my name is Ken Williams. I've lived in this district for 23 years, and I've lived next door to an illegal short-term rental, 8-unit rental, for several years now. Some of the problems that I see, first, I think the city ordinances are inadequate and need to be updated. Second, there's the special use permit loophole that a lot of these illegal short-term rentals take advantage of, and we need to do something about that. Another big problem I've seen is lack of enforcement by the city. And then there's also the fact that most of the short-term rentals in this city are unregistered or unlicensed or illegal, or however you want to put it. We've had problems with short-term rental owners forging signatures. We've had attorneys and companies from out of the state who've basically infiltrated our neighborhood association and tried to promote their businesses. It results in destruction of the neighborhood and a lot of crime. Living next door to an illegal STR, 8-unit apartment building that was converted to an illegal STR. On a regular basis, I deal with gunshots. There have been explosions. Had U.S. Marshals raiding the short-term rental to arrest fugitives. So I've got people with AR-15s running around in the street at 6:30 in the morning. KCPD has recovered stolen vehicles from the short-term rental property. Car theft ring has stayed at the short-term rental. Drug trafficking. KCPD drug bust at the short-term rental. Break-ins at the short-term rental. My driveway and car get blocked in by short-term rental tenants. My car was involved in a hit and run with short-term rental tenants. Had short-term rental tenants try to break into my house one night. Caught some of the tenants having sex on my back deck one night. I've had supposed gang members who were involved in the drug bust come to my house afterwards and communicate threats to me in front of KCPD, and nothing was done about that. And then I've also received threats, vulgar messages, and harassment from the owner of the short-term rental. And then, of course, in addition to that, there's the trash, the loud parties, and everything else that comes with them. And that's it. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Ryan Farrell. I live in Hyde Park, and I'm a resident, and I have 2 short-term rentals in a manufacturing district. So I think one of the things we could maybe talk about is, or that hasn't been brought up yet, is how short-term rentals may be handled in different residential versus other districts that may make more sense for them or, to be in. I've been on both sides. We've had issues as a resident with short-term rentals. There was a big shootout on Gillum Road on Memorial Day in 2019. There were hundreds of people at a short-term rental. I've called the city, I've called Airbnb on illegal short-term rentals, and one of the things that as a short-term rental owner is an issue is unpermitted short-term rentals. They probably don't pay the city taxes or the state taxes. They don't follow the rules about how many people are in their units. And so they're making a lot more money than people who are following the rules as short-term rentals. And so there's an even bigger incentive for people to buy houses and buy apartments and do it illegally because they can have more occupants and then they can make more money. And so I think that from my perspective, enforcement should be the very first thing that is improved. And I think it would clean up the vast majority of the issues. I do think that there could be policy things that could change to make it a more straightforward permitting process. I'm not saying to eliminate neighbor consent, but to make it easy, make it more straightforward for an operator to know what the rules are to function in the city application process. Thanks.
My name is Rita, and I live in Manheim Park. I've been in my house since it was built. I am strongly opposed to non-owner occupied Airbnbs. When the owner is not there, they are not plagued with the disturbances that the rest of the people who live on the block have to deal with on a constant basis. As soon as one person checks out, another person checks in. The people who don't live in the neighborhood, they don't care about how loud they are, how disrespectful they are. I have had to call the police numerous times. The police don't respond. The city is no help. You make complaints. It seems to be when a complaint is lodged against one, especially when it's illegal, the city should do something to shut them down and say, hey, you cannot operate anymore. So I want to know what's being done about that, especially when there's a complaint. I even showed the mayor, I caught him at a cafe and showed him some videotapes of the lewd and lascivious behavior going on at one of the ones on my block. It should be a rule that says there should not be multiple ones on one block. And if the houses are closely compacted together, it just shouldn't even be allowed, period. And when people come to town, they come to town to party. I had my house built. My house was built in, I think, like 2000. It was when the new construction when I got in it. I came and moved there to live in a neighborhood, not in an Airbnb resort town. People come to town to party. I'm close to the plaza. They want to have fun. They want to go to Westport. They want to kick it. They don't come into the Airbnb and go to bed. They stay up all night long. They want to enjoy the backyard, the porch, the deck, and they continue to party all night long. I have had to start seeing a sleep therapist. I've had to get a sound machine. I have to leave on a fan, a TV to drown out the noise. They don't just come on the weekend. All throughout the week, there's people in and out, multiple Airbnbs. I can't even get sleep at night. Now I'm on several medications just to try to get to sleep to drown out the noise. And I'm getting no help from the city. City inspector comes supposedly to do their inspection. I don't know how you inspect anything from a car across the street from the Airbnb. So I'm like, what are the neighbors, who is supporting the neighbors that have to deal with this? There's no help for us. And even Airbnb's platform that says, oh, there's not supposed to be parties there. You report a party, they do nothing about it. And then when the city and the police don't help us, what exactly are we supposed to do? That's my question. Who Who is the actual point of contact that can actually get something done to help us when we have pictures, videos, to say, hey, this is a problematic property? Who is there to help us? I'd like to leave with that answer today.
And again, I'm making sure that we've got all these questions, because that's, I think, the second similar question. So we'll make sure that we ask these here in a second. And we're, again, if there's not an adequate, if the answer is not what we want to hear, then that's an idea for us to change it. So this is still a process to not only understand what the challenges are, but to look towards the future for some better options.
Hi, I'm Tom Meyer. For disclosure's sake, I'm an urban planner that works at the UNK Center for Neighborhoods, but tonight I'm representing myself as a resident of South Hyde Park neighborhood and someone that lives across the street from an Airbnb. I think we all know that they're a big problem. They drive up costs, they destabilize neighborhoods, they push existing residents out. And again, like many people have said, I've got no problem with owner-occupied Airbnbs. I think that's a great idea. I think long-term, short-term, if you want to rent out a room in your home to somebody that needs a room, then by all means, that's a great idea. But these whole house rentals, I mean, don't treat my neighborhood like a goddamn hotel, because it ain't.
Yeah, right on.
And I mean, you said you've got 100 houses that you manage. What do you say to the 100 families that don't have some place to sleep tonight because you're using you're using existing housing stock as a hotel? It's BS, and we're sick of it.
Here.
Good evening. My name's Jim Wanzer, and I'm with the Rock Hill Homes Association. And I want to just start, and I'll be brief, but I want to start by acknowledging those faces that are here tonight that have spent decades building community in their neighborhoods. And they, decades. And community is not about a well-painted house. It's not about a manager that you can call. Community is about having good, stable neighborhoods where you know your neighbors, you relate to your neighbors, and you watch out for your neighbors. And the Airbnbs in residential areas is a corrosion to that sense of community. And it's mixing the model of healthy neighborhoods with a business entity. And the two can coexist, but they don't need to mingle, if you will. And I have another point. But anyway, it seems exploitive that we who've worked to build strong neighborhoods, which are the backbone of Kansas City, see that being chipped away by having transient neighbors. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Andrea.bough. I am an architect. I am also a resident of Brookside Park. We're a very small neighborhood. We are about 6 or 7 blocks. My issue with short-term rentals is recently there could potentially be 3 just on my side of the block with 12 homes. So I believe quotas and a more stringent application process, more residents should be able to provide feedback and be informed of potential short-term rentals. I may live 3 doors down from a potential rental, but because I'm not 2 doors away, then I won't have input on that. They're gonna affect parking on my side of the street and noise and trash. All of those are issues that all the residents on the block deal with. The other concern is just having corporate owners that then hire managers that are random LLCs located in KCK. I went down a rabbit hole chasing the source of one of them that we have issues with on our block. I also contacted Airbnb. They said they couldn't do anything about it because they're a hosting platform. The city is very behind on violation and inspections. There should be larger fines because this particular short-term rental is still advertising on Airbnb and they're getting, $400 a night. They're trading on the qualities of my neighborhood, the work that I put into our homes, my neighbors, we all put into creating a beautiful community, and they're selling that for profit. It's incredibly frustrating. And I think there should be more funding for enforcement. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Anna Roseborough. I'm with Sacred Heart Neighborhood Association from 25th to 31st Street. We are dealing with two places right now, as I'm aware of. The first one is the Maximilian KCBL old building, historic building. He had pushed it to be a rental, and anyway, the City Hall did pass it, and now it's went into Airbnb. And I don't know how many people are in there all the time, but it's pretty packed. And they have cars in there, and it's a one-way street goes down. And instead of them going down the right way, they go out the other way because they're closer to the highway. So that's not right for the neighbors and everybody else. Like, they have special privilege to do this. And another thing is, they bring their big dogs or animals. They walk them, take a walk around the neighborhood, and they let their dog do their waste and everything. And our neighbors are say, "Hey, you need a bag to pick it up," and all they get is stare downs. That's not good. And we don't appreciate that. And the next one is I'm complaining about. We have, like Channel 4 on 31st Street, we have tin cans, I call them. There were supposed to be apartments. Now I heard apartments for Penn Valley students to go in there. We fought for not having that. Katheryn.shields did approve it because it was a blighted area. Excuse me, D Machinery and Westside Housing, I don't know who had part of that area. We had called 311 to have them cut down their weeds and everything to do something with that property, but they failed to do so. So they left it like a blighted area. So now it did pass because Katheryn.shields said, "Oh, that's a blighted area. We could do that. That'd be wonderful." Anyway, I'm ready to say a bad word right now, but
we all are.
But what I'm getting at now, I heard they're trying to push it to be Airbnb, and that's not right. We don't want that. We want to keep our area residential. Thank you.
Right on.
I'm Julia Thompson. I'm president of the West Plaza Neighborhood Association, and I think you've heard from several of our members or residents that live within our neighborhood and the concerns that they have. These concerns are not isolated. This is happening throughout the neighborhood. There is a wide variety of perspectives on the idea of Airbnbs in our neighborhood, but we all agree that the current practices and the current policies related to them are not sufficient, and the enforcement of those policies is not sufficient. So the burden is falling to motivated individuals, to the neighborhood association to try and track the unregistered Airbnbs, to follow up on criminal activity, nuisance activity, and it's overwhelming. There's not enough time to create a response, go to the city, and actually have it enforced. So we have developed a work group to start our response as a neighborhood association to Airbnbs. But in the meantime, what we are trying to develop and what we are asking of the city is a moratorium on new applications for Airbnbs because of the lack of enforcement, because of the lack of opportunity for neighborhood associations and individuals to give feedback on these new Airbnbs so that we have time to sort of get our ideas together, get our requests together, and the city has time to get those requests together. So that is something that we're working on as a neighborhood association, is developing a letter that we can start submitting when owners present to CPC and BZA with applications for permits for STRs. Is right now we feel like we just need a pause until we can have a better response, until we can know how the city is going to enforce their ordinances and be able to sort of take a breath and figure out what we want to do about this.
Right on.
Hi, my name is Susan Brown, and I own an Airbnb, and I want to tell you why. I don't live in it. It is my mother-in-law and father-in-law worked for the city of Kansas City, Missouri, each for 30 years. They retired from the city. My father-in-law has passed. My mother-in-law, we have her in assisted living, and in order to cover her expenses, she has dementia. We could not afford all of her expenses. We have converted her home into an Airbnb. And we have a professional manager, and we care, and I'm just mortified by everything that you're going through. I'm so sorry. And we are impacted just as much by what's going on with the unlicensed and the unenforcement that is going on. So we're definitely on the side of let's enforce, let's stop the crazy and enforce what's on the books. We get a lot of people that come to our home, my mother-in-law's home, and they are there. We have some that are caring for family members that are in the hospital. They have to stay there for 30 days, 40, a month. You know, sometimes they have family members that are in hospice. We've had several that have stayed there because they were in between homes. It's been really hard to get people to finish up the construction of their home. So, and I just wanted to say, it just gives us the option. We don't live in the home, but it has given us the option to give her care, and we give everybody our names and phone numbers. And that's all I have to say. Is just that if there is anything, we do definitely hope that there can be more enforcement, because this is just horrible. So.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Katrina Rojas. I live on Kansas City's west side. I think I've heard someone touch upon traffic issues and the flow of traffic going through your block. I have similar, that's one of the topics here that I want to touch on is street parking. Our houses are close together and we have very limited parking on our street. And when the renters come in, they park their cars throughout the block, in front of our homes, across the street, and if we've gone somewhere, there's nowhere for us to park. And so what we've done, which is, I know it's not right, but I know it's public parking, street is public parking, but this is a residential neighborhood. Parking should be for us who live there, the owners of the home. It's not a hotel district at all, or a hotel motel district. And if we go somewhere, we have cones. We put cones in front of our house so we can come back if we're going to the grocery store to park, you know. And when they come, they leave their car parked where it's at for the whole weekend. And that creates an issue for everybody on our block. And there's 2 in our neighborhood who have not reached out to neighbors to sign any authorization for them to have an Airbnb. And the city prides itself on promoting the city and marketing the city on neighborhoods. We have great neighborhoods. Come move your business. Come live in Kansas City. We have great neighborhoods. Well, and then you come to Kansas City, your neighbors, you've got Airbnbs, and also deflates the value of your home, because who's going to move into next door to an Airbnb? And one other thing, over the weekend, I know everybody has the same thing, and Saturday I must have been really tired, so I fell asleep about 9 o'clock. And I was receiving text messages all through about 11:30, midnight, and 1 o'clock, and I didn't hear any of them because I put on silent. And so next day I woke up, I said, what is all these texts from neighbors all over? Say, hey, Katrina, is there a party going on next door in that Airbnb? I'm thinking. And so, you know, I said no, because there was cars going down the street making U-turns, and, you know, it was just a traffic issue. So parking and non-licensed is probably the biggest key as well. So thank you all.
Thank you. I think we have time for 2 more comments.
Hi, my name is Laura. I am a legal licensed short-term rental owner. All of my neighbors have my phone number, my property manager's phone number. I think one fact that is missing here, that according to the city articles that I've read, is that 90% of the short-term rentals are unlicensed and illegal, and only 10% are legal. So In my opinion, there's always going to be a difference of what somebody can and can't do with their own property that they're paying their mortgage and their taxes on. But I don't feel like that the legal Airbnbs are the issue. I feel like, in my opinion, it's the illegal Airbnbs. And as a legal Airbnb or short-term rental owner, it's extremely frustrating for me because I can go on the website. I did go on the website, and within a mile of my property, like within an hour, I found like 50 illegal Airbnbs, and I have to compete with them. And the other issue that I would be concerned about if I was this man is if they can't even follow the procedure to get a license, are these short-term rental properties even safe to stay at? Do they have smoke detectors, or they're following the rules with the egress? They're sleeping, some of them I've seen like bunk beds in a bedroom. And I get why you guys are frustrated. It's frustrating for me. It's like, you put all this time and energy into your property to make it nice, and then you go on and you see all these new rentals coming on, and it's overwhelming. And I don't feel like that they're gonna stop unless the city enforces the rules. I mean, that's one thing that I've noticed living in Kansas City is that a lot of the laws don't get enforced. That's why cars get broken into. That's why, there's so many Airbnbs, because they don't have to. These owners know that they should be licensed. You can go on a Google search and, Airbnb Kansas City, and you have to be licensed. They don't do it because they know they don't have to. Nothing's gonna happen. I found one Airbnb, and I can send you the link for it. The neighbor has reported this Airbnb 17 times in the past year, and I can get on Airbnb and book that place, even though it has no license and it's been reported 17 times. So, okay, I guess my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. One last comment, and then we'll switch gears quickly.
Hey, how are you guys? I'm Lance Pierce. I've been a host for 10 years. I host properties I own, and then I host for other people. I helped organize the ordinance that's actually in place now 5 years ago, and we had all these meetings, and for 2 years we did this process. And for 5 years ago, we put together all of this, and we did all these town halls, and for two years, we put together this process to try to address some of these issues. And we constantly said, hey, city council, don't make it too complicated, because it's gonna be really, really hard to enforce. And it was really complicated, and it was really hard to enforce. And there was no funding with it. So the city planning office only had 2 staff members to process all the applications. So for a year and a half, I probably had 8 applications in that weren't processed. And it was just hard because they're not staffed. There's no funding for the planning department to process the applications that are put forward. There's no funding for them to do any type of enforcement. A lot of the concerns that everybody's having here are the same concerns that we have too. That's not what we want in these communities, but the city has to have funding to do that enforcement. So whether that's a tax that needs to be levied on Airbnbs to the city, that's gonna be really difficult because it has to be passed at the state level. So the state has to authorize a transient tax first, then the local government can then pass that here in Kansas City. But these are a lot of the questions that are in the ordinance, but the city doesn't have the funding to do any of the things that they've put into law. So, I think that's where we really need to start is, let's enforce this. Laura, I think was her name. Let's make sure that the unregistered people are either registered and we are keeping track of the complaints that we have per Airbnb, or let's enforce them so that they can have unregistered STRs. I think it's really straightforward. You put a law in place, you staff accordingly so that you can process those applications, and when they don't apply, you have the funding to go and enforce and say, you've broken an ordinance, just like we do with any other ordinance. So I think it's really straightforward. Make laws and enforce them.
Okay, thank you everyone for sharing your concerns and ideas, and I took copious notes. I know Marissa took a lot of notes as well. There were a couple of key themes, I think. Enforcement being, I think I tried to make a tick mark next to everything that was said more than once, and my pen ran out of ink when marking next to enforcement, so it seems like lack of enforcement is of the ordinance that we currently have, whether we want to change it or not. Lack of effective ordinance right now, lack of enforcement is our biggest challenge. So that is definitely something there. A couple of questions that came up were, how does one person mentioned that a particular property has been reported 17 times. And I guess maybe the question that kind of came up over and over again was, how does a citizen report either an illegally operating STR or one that is legally operating but is a nuisance? What is the enforcement mechanism right now? And I think, and I will back up and just say that one of the biggest challenges that we have, and it was Lance, I believe, who was the last person to speak, they mentioned it very clearly that we're not putting enough people in charge of this program, and that is ultimately on the city council to repair. If we have an ordinance on the book that we actually want to see enforced, and we've got to make it a priority. We've got to make it a priority by funding the staffing and ensuring that staffing is available in there and enforcing. But